start off with our third keynote speaker. I can't say I'm excited to announce. I'm pleased, I'm delighted. We have Peter Thiel.
Thanks a lot. You know, when I was CEO at PayPal back in '99, when I was trying to pitch the company, one of the things I tried to do to get people's attention was you hold up a $100 bill in a room, and you basically say, well, you know, we're trying to create a new form of currency, we're trying to create a new type of money, and sort of why is this valuable? You know, gentleman in the front row, would you like to have this $100 bill? And you know, why would this be of value to you? And it's because it's of value to other people, and it's because there's something about it where you will use it to make payments. But when you actually think about how money works, it's a very, very strange thing. You know, it's not clear this has any intrinsic value. You know, the paper it's printed on isn't worth very much. It's not clear what it really refers to and why it has value. And so as you think about, you know, about it, it's quite a strange thing. And so it seemed like in 98, 99, when we were first getting started with PayPal, that if you could start a completely new currency, this would actually be a pretty valuable thing to do. And it was sort of thinking about these sorts of big picture questions that got me involved in starting this company back in 98, 99. I think sort of the high-level advice that I think one always has to have for starting a business is two things. And one is it has to be something that's fundamentally a good, important, big idea. And secondly, it has to be one that in the tech space people haven't really had. Or it has to be something that's at least contrarian, and so you're not competing with too many different people. And so, you know, money seems like a big thing. People had already realized it was a pretty big thing on the internet as early as 94, 95, when we had the very first wave of internet companies founded around the time of Netscape or right after Netscape. And so there were a whole series of these payments companies that got started. And they basically had run into all these problems. They were trying to create these completely new currencies, e-cash, cyber cash, and basically it was very hard to get people to adopt it, because the problem they ran into was, if you are creating a new currency, why would anybody start using it? What would be the value of the very first person in the world to have a $100 bill? If you were the only person in the world who would value this, why would you use it? And so by 98, 99, when we were getting started, already all these companies had failed. And even though 99 was probably not the best time to start an internet company in the sense that too many people were doing it, and there was nothing about it that was sort of unconventional, an online payments company was actually a pretty contrarian idea. Nobody was trying to do it. People had sort of concluded it was not possible. And as my co-founder, Max Levchin, and I, in the course of that year, brainstorming how to start the company, we were very focused on trying to solve some of these problems that other companies that had tried to create a new currency, a new payment system, had failed to solve. And the basic problem was really this adoption distribution problem. How do you get something adopted that's really valuable to people who are not yet using it? And we basically started with looking at Palm Pilots and wireless devices, and then it was maybe you could use it on cell phones. It was sort of a new platform that people weren't using. We got Nokia to invest as our first VC in June of 99. Our first board meeting about a month later, July 99, we told them we concluded the whole mobile internet thing was a little bit too early, and it wasn't really going to happen. And they were great VCs, and they basically said, okay, well, and then we said, well, maybe we should just actually try to create a payments thing on the internet itself. And the key idea we sort of stumbled on in August, September 99, was to link money and email. And it was, everybody has an email account, and could you send money to anybody with an email address? And once we had come up with this idea, it seemed actually so obvious and so trivial that it was actually weird that no one had done it yet. And we basically, and we concluded, actually, we better just do this and roll this out as quickly as possible. We have to get people to start using it, and then we have to accelerate the growth as fast as possible, because even though it's a good idea, and it hasn't been done, and it's a way to get it started, where you can send money to anyone with an email address, so you can send it to people who are not yet signed up. And this way, you solve the counterparty problem, where in most payment systems, you have to get everyone to adopt it before it's useful to anybody. By leveraging off email, it could be valuable for the first person, the first 10 people, because you can start sending money to people keyed off their email address. And so when we launched in October of '99 with the 24 people at our office, we basically started scaling around those people, and we decided we had to accelerate the growth even faster. We had to give people $20 bonuses to sign up, $20 bonuses for everybody they referred, and basically it scaled. In the course of the next, it grew at this crazy exponential pace. We got about 7% compound daily growth over the next several months, and basically by mid-November was at 1,000 users, by end of December was at 12,000, by February 3rd, 2000 was at 100,000, by mid-April 2000 was up to 1 million. And along with the exponentially growing user base, you had basically no revenues and an exponentially growing cost structure, because it was basically a $10, a $20 per user acquisition cost. And so I remember in early March 2000, we were looking at, we had about 15 million in the bank. The burn rate was growing to the point where we were going to run out of all the money in about 6 weeks. The board, of course, it being March 2000, it wasn't even in the least bit worried. We raised a lot of money. We then proceeded to burn through almost all that money in the next 6 months as we scaled it up. And the initial thought was there were going to be all these people who will come in and copy us. To some extent, people were. The big banks were a little bit nervous to go into this space because they were very worried about the fraud problem. We had sort of ignored it. Remember when the Cybercash CEO, bankruptcy CEO, when I was talking to him about PayPal 99, asked me, so what are you going to do about chargebacks, which is when people charge a credit card and dispute the bill. And I told him, well, I don't really know what's a chargeback. And then it was basically, well, this is what the big fraud problem you run into. And we thought that he was just sort of a pessimistic person who should be ignored, because, and obviously this is why you could never build a company. We assured him that PayPal was just going to be among friends, and everybody was going to be a friend, and so there would be no fraud. And then we sort of, needless to say, started to encounter it in an accelerating way in the spring and summer of 2000, where basically it scaled to several $1 million in fraud. Maybe 3% of the payment volume was fraudulent by June, July of 2000. We basically were left holding the empty bag, and the money sort of ended in various countries far removed from the U.S. and completely outside of legal jurisdiction, which I guess is sort of one of the downsides of trying to create a completely new currency as well. One of the benefits of, and then, I think there was sort of a lot of innovation around solving the fraud problem. We scrambled very quickly. I think this was probably the single hardest technical challenge we had to solve. And then over time, we gradually got the business to break even. We figured out the revenue model in the fall of 2000. It's sort of seemed like a kind of a crazy way to build a business, where you had to first scale a business and then see if you had a revenue model. The initial thing was all sorts of complicated upselling models, where we would get you using PayPal, and then we'd sell you a credit card, a bank account, a stock brokerage account, maybe a house. But basically, it turned out, fortunately, we didn't have to do any of that, and we could just charge people a small percentage of the money they received. Business sort of got to break even. It turned out it was adopted very, very widely on the eBay, and then basically, we had sort of a series of conversations with eBay. I can go into sort of a lot more in some of the Q&A if people are interested, but basically, you could. We could never quite agree on it, because we were sort of the single company that was processing payments on eBay, and they were trying to get other people to sort of open the cash registers internally. Sort of like eBay was like a Walmart store, and it's like they couldn't operate the cash registers. They couldn't be a company operating the cash registers, and they were just trying to figure out how to do that. So there was sort of there was basically any given point where they only had to figure it out once and we'd be in trouble. On the other hand, they were working with the bank, which was very scared about the fraud problem, and so there was a lot of opportunity for us to build a sizable business there in the course of 2001. The company became profitable September 2001. It went public in February of 2002. It was bought by eBay in June of 2002. And I can sort of go through all the other crazy things we went through in the process of going from 4 people to about 900 people in the course of a little under 4 years. When I sort of look back on the PayPal thing, I want to end with 2 thoughts and maybe just open it to some questions. One, there's sort of a post-mortem I had on PayPal as of 2004, and there's sort of a post-mortem I have as of 2010. So the 2004 post-mortem was sort of a very cool business to build, but the whole thing was so crazy that there actually are no lessons to be learned, or the lessons are very unclear. You know, we burned through $180 million before we got to break even. Nobody could do that anymore. It was kind of crazy. We had no revenue model. Burn rate was over $10 million a month with 0 revenues for 7-8 months. There were sort of all these parts of it that one could never do again. And so the post-mortem was, we should have, if we did it again, there were things we did right. We had a great team of people, great technologists, but you had to actually figure out a better way to get to the business model much more quickly. My sort of post-mortem on the post-mortem, circa 2010, looking back on it, is that I actually think there's something to be said for having a business that's valuable enough that you can get people to give you $210 million or over $180 million to build the business. And one of the sort of things I would throw out as a somewhat contrarian idea is that you want to be building businesses that are so valuable that investors are willing to invest a great deal of capital. And the businesses that are just smaller incremental businesses that only cost a modest amount of money are not necessarily as valuable, because a lot of people can start. If I had a business, if I said, I'm going to write a screenplay in Los Angeles and it only costs $10,000 or less than that to write a screenplay, it's a very cheap business, and you can have thousands of businesses writing screenplays, but there's a very low barrier to entry and possibly not that much value. So I think one of the things that's true is that super capital-intensive businesses are generally less valuable, because at some point they're so expensive they don't work. I think this tends to be true of a lot of the clean tech companies these days. It's probably true of a lot of traditional biotech, where it costs $1 billion to develop a drug or something like that. On the other end of the spectrum, though, if you have a business that only takes $250,000, $1 million, $500,000 to get started and get to break even, that could be a phenomenal business, but it's also quite possible that it's the sort of business where you could actually have 100 other people competing with you, and so it may sort of be a lot less valuable. And so the sort of post-mortem on the post-mortem I have is that even though it would have been good for us to have built a new payments company, and the starting point of a new currency that's still getting created today on less than the amount of money we did, it was actually much more important to have a business that was valuable enough and where the idea was big enough that you could do something like that. Anyway, with that, I'll open up to questions. Ben, I thought it would be good to give a little bit of the PayPal history, but I'd be happy to talk about that and anything else people might have questions about. Thank you very much.